Ciao everyone and welcome back to Growth Talks. I'm your host, Raffaele Gaito, and my guest today is Brennan Woodruff. Brennan, how are you today?
I'm great. I'm excited to be here. I'm so jealous of
Welcome
this
to the show.
picturesque background you have over there. It's amazing. I have to curate my background a little bit better next time.
Yeah,
But
next time, next time, next time. Welcome to the show, man.
thank you. It's
So,
great to be here.
yeah, so happy to have you here. I've been waiting to have an episode on, the whole AI topic, AI in marketing topic. I'm super
Yeah,
excited about AI, so I'm also super excited about, this interview today. So let's start with a simple one. A quick intro. Tell something about yourself. Who are you? What's your background, your track record? What are you doing right now?
yeah, yeah. Awesome. So it all started on a rainy day in January of 1990. No, I'm kidding. I won't start that far back for the listeners. I'll save you that story. But a bit about me. I am a finance guy gone rogue to AI entrepreneurship. So I've spent most of my career in a finance role. I started at KPMG's Deal Advisory, went to Uber's product finance team and helped them IPO, and then went to SoftBank's Vision funds, helping them deploy about 50 billion of capital during my time at SoftBank. And really, I got the entrepreneurial itch, jumped in with a crew of AI PhDs, and that's when we formed GoCharlie. I've been there for about a year, but let's not make this all about work. I love the AI front, but a little bit about me. I'm originally from Indiana. I'm a tried and true Hoosier. If you don't know what that means, look it up, because even the people from Indiana don't know what that means. Fun fact about me is I've been in 35 weddings. So I've been a best man about 10 times. I've been a groomsman about 20. I've even officiated 3 weddings, including my younger sister's, which was probably my proudest achievement. So
Wow.
if you have any wedding questions outside of entrepreneurship and AI, we can cover those today too.
A whole episode about that one we can do.
Exactly. Growth in weddings. Yeah, for sure. That'd be a fun one.
Nice, 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 nice. So I would move to the first question that I have for you. There is this whole AI hype, I would say right now, obviously mostly because of OpenAI and what's happening around, those tools. So everyone now is talking about AI, but it's not something new actually. Um, I'm super curious, and super interested in, the mix AI and marketing. I think it's great. There are great opportunities there. So let's start with this one. What about AI in marketing, and how it can help us, entrepreneurs, business owners, marketers, freelancers?
Yeah. Totally. So I think the important thing to start out with here is just like on a broader scale with AI, like we're entering this adoption curve. And I think a great analogy of this adoption curve is the drone industry. So with drones, like everybody feared them as things that were flying through the air. They were used for defense. They were going to kill you. And then they had to get over that hump of, hey, this actually has consumer application. This actually has business application. This actually has a use that is useful to me. And I actually met the guy that was DJI's head of creative that really helped accelerate that adoption curve. And I think what we're experiencing now is very much a similar adoption curve where AI is going from the HAL of Space Odyssey 2001 into this like really helpful product that people want to use in their daily lives, that people have use cases across a number of different things that they're doing in their lives. And so honestly, I think the hype train, most of the time I equate hype train with like there's nothing behind it. But here I think we're actually seeing a fundamental shift in how we're using technology in our lives and how it can help us. And so if we nail that down into the marketing perspective, copywriting was really the first wave of these AI companies using generative AI. For those of you on the call that aren't really familiar with the concept of generative AI, it's creating net new information. So you've fed it a bunch of data, it creates net new information. So if you write in your job, there is a use for AI and generative AI because it can take your ideas and turn them into a digital reality. Fascinating technology. But let's drill that down into marketing now, right? So we at GoCharlie have thought about this pretty intimately. We're like, well, copywriting is part of it, but then maybe you have an existing content library. And instead of just creating a whole bunch of net new material, you just want to give an AI some goals. And you want to give an AI your target audience and a little bit of information about your brand and maybe a couple links to content that's performed really well for you in the past. And Charlie, our engine, will actually take that content and turn it into a fresh set of material that you can then post to your website, to your product description pages, to your social media profiles. You can literally take one blog that you wrote and you can create an entire social media campaign specifically tailored to LinkedIn, uh, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. So what you're starting to see is that these AI tools are migrating away from just like, hey, you give me one piece of information, I give you something back, to you can start to tell stories about your brand across multiple pieces of content, across multiple platforms, all in one click. And I don't know if anyone else on the call is with this same difficulty I have, but taking content from one platform and repurposing it for another is really hard and it's
Yeah.
time consuming.
Time consuming. Yeah.
That times 100 if you're trying to take like a talk that you did or a panel or heck, even this podcast and turn that into useful content in a text format. Because I think the best really think about how do I make my great content? Because not all content's going to be great. Let's just agree there. Not all content's going to be great. But how do I take my best content and make it last for a long time and refresh it? And so AI is giving you the ability not only to create this net new marketing copy or brand assets or eventually video, which is coming, um, but you can also take your existing library and just tell that same story in a new way. And so AI is really positioning itself as like your marketing assistant rather than like trying to take over the whole process. I don't think we're going to get to a place where AI removes humans anytime soon, especially in something that's so high touch with customers as marketing.
Mm. And I was thinking, repurposing content is, I mean, is great. It's the key of, modern content marketing, but most of the time it's quite hard, even
Yeah.
impossible, especially for, if you're like a freelance or a solopreneur, but even for startups and SMEs.
Yeah.
So in this case, with AI and with this kind of tools, you actually have, you have the power, the resources to do repurposing. It's in its best. Is that
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah. So we started out with just YouTube URLs as a
Mm.
input, and you could turn that into a blog, which was honestly a problem we had ourselves. I was speaking on some panels early on. I was like, man, I really want to write a blog about like what we talked about here because I think there's some good nuggets that I wouldn't be able to produce again myself. And I was like, well, first I have to create a transcription, and then I have to take that transcription and summarize it into its semantic highlights. And then from those highlights, I have to expand on that. And then I got to go back and edit it. And I was like, what if I could just do that all at once? And so that's what we did. And the fascinating part is like some people used it for that, but other people used it as a way to summarize videos from their favorite content creators and write effectively with their favorite content creators. Other people use it as an education tool. And
Mm.
they were like, hey, I don't want to watch this 3-hour YouTube video, but if I could get a synopsis of it that's understandable instead of a transcription, I will totally read that. And then I'm
Mm.
able to compare across different videos. So we have that functionality available in the platform, but now we're doing the real fun stuff. I think where we've expanded what you can put in the front end, which is you can put a website URL. So maybe as a small medium business, all you've created is a website so far, and you could, or maybe you've only written a paragraph about what your company does, or maybe you've just talked with a friend and recorded it about what you want this business to be. You can upload audio video files, you could upload your website, you could upload this paragraph that you've written about your company, and from that Charlie could create a longer summary that discusses your business. He could create an outline that you then use to create a business plan. He can create an entire blog. But what I'm really excited about, what's coming out soon, is he can create social media campaigns. But more importantly, he can tailor the voice to the preferred tone per each platform. And that is like a powerful tool. Just going from like one platform to another is one thing, but being able to change the voice to what is preferred on a given platform is really unique.
Do you mean
And
something like more professional on LinkedIn, more funny on Instagram, this kind of approach?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes. So, for instance, Instagram, we're going to have a little bit more emojis, a little more hashtags, a lot more
Mm.
casual tone, a little bit more warm. Whereas a LinkedIn is going to be more professional, less hashtags, less emojis, more succinct, very very direct voice. So it depends on what platform you're creating for. But the beauty is that you can go between platforms with that same input, and so now you can create in different tones of voice per each platform using the same piece of content. So for me, a social media campaign might have taken weeks before, and now I can do it in an hour across 4 different platforms. Add some creative, which we can do in the platform, and you're there. So we're really starting to reimagine the time investment that any of our users need to make in creating the marketing content that they're doing.
I, I'm fascinating about this. I mean, about this whole process, especially the last, let's say, probably 5 years in the AI world. How did we get here? Why did everything like exploded? In the last couple of years, what happened?
Yeah, so I think there's been some like macro trends really at play, but I would say that the birth of really what we're imagining AI is right now, I would say is really you trace back to like the Transformer paper. Now, for those that are not technically knowledgeable, including myself, I let our AI PhDs teach me a lot of this. But the Transformer paper lays out a model architecture. So these AI models, think of them as like an engine in a car. They have a bunch of different moving pieces, but they're an engine nonetheless. And so someone basically invented a more efficient engine, and from that engine combined with like the constantly reducing cost of computing, the constant availability of cloud computing going up, as well as big training data sets being put together, is really what spurred this recent explosion. So the Transformer paper writers, many of them went to OpenAI. Some of them went to Adept Labs, who I'm very excited to see what their product ends up coming out as a little bit later this year. Some of them went to Anthropic, who just released a ChatGPT competitor. And so, really, those folks invented a technology that allowed for compute efficient generation. And so that's really what took off. That was the explosion. But then, if we think about a timeline, GPT-2 was released by OpenAI. I believe it was in 2019. I can't remember the exact month, but then they released GPT-3 June of 2020. Now, it wasn't available to the public, it was just available as a playground. And then in 2021, they released it via an API. And that's when everything exploded. That's when startups like Jasper, Copy.ai, a couple other players internationally, they started to pop up because they saw the potential of this technology to be applied to a marketing use case. Now, obviously, OpenAI has released more models since then, but a more recent development, because text isn't everything, although I do think language is the base, is Stability AI. So Stability AI basically went to Amazon. They reserved a whole bunch of GPUs. GPUs are really the backbone of cloud computing for these AI models and being able to train them. And they created an open source model called Stable Diffusion, and they were the first real challengers to OpenAI's generative AI, kingship. And so now we're seeing all these other players starting to pop up. It's kind of like the 4 minute mile. It's like once someone ran it, then more and more people started creating things. So I think 2023 is going to be really exciting for this space because there's so many people that have learned and are able to build on top of the learnings that these other players have had to create their own models. And maybe there's a marketing specific vertical that we build. Maybe there's a healthcare vertical that someone else builds. But we're only at the very beginning of this stuff. Like, eventually you could plug in a whole bunch of data about a specific disease and patients that you've seen, and this AI could literally create its own cure or own field of science to cure it. So that's what gets me really excited about this space. But that's kind of where we started. That's where I see let's say the dam broke, kind of when the Transformer paper came to life.
And you said something interesting before. You said, that AI is not, taking away human jobs in marketing, at least not for now.
Yeah.
So I was wondering, let's say that I'm a creative, a freelance. I don't know. I work in content. I don't know, copy or whatever. How can I use AI, to improve, to enhance my day-to-day job, and not be, worried about AI taking over my, my job on a daily basis.
Yeah, yeah. So I think it's a very timely discussion. We've received a lot of backlash even on our own marketing, that people are like, "Oh, you're just trying to get rid of people's jobs." And you know, I think we are going to go through a rough transition period where um, people are going to have to reimagine what they do for work, because a lot of the lower level, mundane, repetitive tasks are going away. Now, whether or not people want to do those jobs, I think is a separate question, but I won't dip too into the water there. But if I think about marketers in how I would be approaching this, is, it's not going to replace you. One, because the models aren't good enough, I think, to trust these models to just go wild and post everything for you without your intervention. I think marketing and sales are two things where it's so customer focused and so many customer touch points that you're never going to let an AI model just like kind of go on its own. At least I don't think for this decade. We'll see. But my best recommendation would be get knowledgeable now. I think that this technology has been out there for a while. A while in tech speak is like a year and a half, but I think it's only going to get wilder in terms of what it is. And so if you're not informing yourself, you're doing yourself a disservice of how you can bring this into your role. I think another really cool thing for marketers here is that marketing is probably the most focused on use case of this technology. And the folks at the AI Marketing Institute said this really well, which is the marketer can be the catalyst for change in the organization to consider AI technologies. If your company is not doing anything with AI right now, I would say that you need to start, because the big companies are going to get ate by smaller companies that are using AI if they're competing. But you're basically going to have these buckets of like AI is the service, and then you're going to have AI enabled, which is old businesses that remove friction with AI, and then you're going to have the obsolete companies. And so the marketer needs to be looking for ways that AI can 10x, 100x, 200x, whatever you want to call it, their output, because by 10xing their output, that's generating more sales. By generating more sales, that's more people the organization can bring in. And so if you can be the catalyst of change and show that AI can vastly improve your output, that will get leadership to consider you bringing it into other parts of the business. Now, I do think that another benefit of getting up to speed on these tools is that I think teams will become leaner. I think there will be a world where you have a lot more solopreneurs. I believe in this concept called the sovereign individual. That's a great book. We can mention that later. But the sovereign individual is basically saying at a point where technology becomes so powerful, you could exist as your own sovereign nation, sovereign company. And I very much could see a future where you just have an idea and then you have all these AI tools that execute the different functions of a small business. And so small businesses may become a lot leaner. Enterprises probably become a lot leaner over the long term. But what that also means is that there will be more companies. There will be more people being able to pursue entrepreneurial dreams if that's something that they wish. But I think it's a matter of getting educated, playing around with what's out there, and trying to think about like what are the things that take the most amount of time in my workflow? Because I guarantee you someone's working on an AI to figure that out. Us personally, I'm trying to approach marketing from like what takes the most time. And to me, that's editing in repurposing. And so those two things are probably what take you the most time. And so we built tools around that. So it's getting educated and just playing around and not being afraid to look silly the first time you use an AI model, because it takes some play.
Not being afraid, and also I love the expression you used, be the catalyst of change. I'm
Yes.
quoting you. I love this idea. So that marketing could be like, the first area, in a bigger company where they
Yeah.
start, playing around with AI, realizing how powerful it is and how can, use AI even in other part of the business. That's great, actually. That's great.
Yeah. And it's
Um,
kind of a perfect storm with like macroeconomic events, right? Because there's so many people being laid off. And I'm not saying that AI should be replacing laid off people, but the people that are left, like I've been through a round of layoffs in companies before, and I was one of the ones that was left, thankfully. But that meant I was doing 5 people's work. And so it's like this timely thing where it's like the existing workforce is being squeezed as much as possible, which has meant a huge adoption curve for AI because it's effectively functioning as an employee when the headcount can't be there. But
Mm.
super interesting time for AI to really be taking off.
And I'm curious, you before you mentioned some of the, the probably the main players on this market. What about you guys? I mean, how did you come up with the idea of your tool, and how do you position yourself, in this very crowded market, I would say?
Yeah, totally. So Jasper is like obviously the gorilla in the room. I think they had a really great sales motion. They had a once in a time transformational technology at their disposal, and they started a little bit earlier than us. But man, I got to applaud those guys. They really made something of it. It was truly incredible to see. It was unfortunate when I went to New York and I had a couple fundraising calls, and they're like, "Oh crap, we didn't know that our team invested in Jasper's new round." And I was like, "Oh, that's a fun way to learn about it." But we still somehow managed to get mentioned alongside them in the Wall Street Journal without us knowing, which we found that out from Sequoia emailing us, which is kind of like probably the coolest way to find something like that out. But I think to your point of, there are a lot of players. And I think that's the beauty of this GPT-3 technology and the beauty of what OpenAI built is that you can build companies so easily. The incremental cost of starting a company that has true value because this AI is so valuable is low. But as it pertains to our positioning, we're a bit unique in that we have 2 AI PhDs on a 4-person team. Now that can send some alarm bells if you're trying to build sales motion, but we're trying to build technical moats. And so there's a lot of VCs out there that don't think that there's technical moats, but how we position ourselves to our customers is like, look, we're trying to get you to the final draft. Most of these AI tools get you to 60% of the way there. I think a perfect analogy I heard was like, if you give someone that's walking a bicycle, that's still a bicycle, even if it's not a car. And so, like, if you're going from them riding it themselves to AI assisted that gets them 60% of the way there, that's still a bicycle. That's still 60% more than they had to do already. And we're trying to get you from 0 to a car. We want to get you to 95%. We want to get you to near final draft because we've engineered the prompts, we've engineered the models, we've created ways for you to intuitively give us information, and we get you to a near final draft. Now, that sounds all fine and dandy, but how do we do that? So one is that we have a content scoring tool. So content scoring, you can think about as Grammarly, but it's engineering your content to engage. So it takes it from a structurally correct thing to more of a how do I make sure that this is going to maximize my engagement? And so there's different criteria to that. Toxicity of language, the reading level of your content, the coherence of thought across your content. Does it include a call to action? Because that's very important for marketing. So we've created a tool that assesses all of that and then aids Charlie and you in making better decisions to structure your content. The second way that we're looking to differentiate is that we are what's called multimodal in the AI space. So multimodal means going across a bunch of different mediums. So for us, that's text, images, audio is coming very soon. Video will be a part of that as well, where you could start with any piece of content and go to anything else that you can create on our platform. We already have a pretty robust image creation suite, but if we think about a brand's problems, right? Copywriting is only one part of it. It's a very small part of it, actually. That was a very weird thing that Jasper did in my mind to make Jasper Art a separate product. For those on the call, the reason that probably happened is that these models are trained to create art. They're not trained to create brand creative. All of my marketers on the call know that art and brand creative are very different things. I've learned that very, very, very much the hard way. It's really cool to generate an art picture, but that's not brand creative. And so we're looking to do tools where you can create content across different mediums that all consider the same inputs. So that would mean creating brand creative at the same time that you're creating your marketing copy. You can actually upload just an image and we can create marketing copy just from that. It's really cool there. And then the last piece, which is coming on Thursday. So excited for this. Like I would jump out of my chair if I could right now, but my legs are a little sore from this morning. But campaigns. So thinking about telling stories across multiple pieces of content. And I think that's probably going to be one of the biggest things that is not going to be able to be done by people that are just one in, one out with these AI models. We're trying to give you the ability to tell a story about your brand, because great marketing is storytelling. Great marketing is no different than a theatrical performance. It should encapture you. It should enrapture you. It should make you think. And in that moment of thought, you should be able to communicate a concept to users. And so we want to create that same experience by telling stories across multiple pieces of content, in even across multiple platforms. So no, that was rambling, but that's kind of the way that I'm thinking about it is, uh, quality content on the first go, being able to create content across multiple mediums, and then campaign and programmatic storytelling.
Yeah, yeah, I love it. I love it. I'm in love with I'm a huge fan of content marketing.
Yeah.
I do a lot of content marketing. It's one of the main topic, with my students, with my clients. So
Yeah.
every time I hear new tools on the market, new opportunities, it's like, oh my god, I have to try this. There is something, it's like something new that you can do. That it was unimaginable, like I don't know, a few months ago, or even a couple of weeks ago. So it's super great. And on staying on this topic, I was wondering, I always like to ask my guests about some,
Mhm.
lesson learned
Yeah.
during your experience with building this startup, from scratch in a crowded market with this new technology. What did you learn? What was the hardest part, until now?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of things I'm still learning. This is my
That's
first
great.
startup experience, but that's part of it. Someone told me beforehand, before I jumped into this, that like startups are really a journey of self actualization, and I didn't really. I thought they were kind of full of crap when they said it, and I very much realized that is true in every form. Everything that you have going on in your personal life, or every issue that you have, will come out in this journey. So that's definitely a lesson learned for me. But as it pertains, I hate when speakers talk and they don't provide like actionable stuff. So I'm going to try to be as actionable as possible. I think one thing that we learned is like build your network early. I had a rather big network, but my network was not of marketers, and that's who we were trying to sell to. It was of a lot more professionals, a lot more content creators, a lot more thought leaders, and so we built some products that can leverage that network. But like building your network even before you have a product, like I think podcasts are a great way to do that. Newsletters are a great way to do that. A better way to maybe say this is pursue your curiosity and let that lead you to the business. If you know you want to create a business, you don't have to have the idea. Just pursue your curiosity, and that will usually get you there. Second thing, don't pay a PR firm 20 grand before you have your first customer. That's a terrible idea. Learn that one the hard way. They were so amazing. Don't get me
I love
wrong.
this one.
Yeah, they were fantastic. They coached us through the process. I thought that's what you were supposed to do. I didn't know any better. I was trying to make a splash, get some VC dollars, get some backlinks. But man, I just did a press release for $1,000 myself. And yes, the PR firms can give you connections, right? They have relationships. But in an early stage startup, you need that capital. Don't spend it on that. Another thing, when working with agencies, we worked with an agency very early on. They helped us develop our brand, but staying on top of people. What we had happen was there was, communications around what we wanted them to do. And then it very much quickly devolved into like things weren't getting done on time. Things weren't happening in the way that we needed them to. The sequence wasn't there. And part of that was me getting used to just like managing people in a field that I'm not in because I didn't know any better. So, like, if you are bringing external service providers in early, make sure that you are on top of it and you've allocated someone on the team that's going to manage them. I think the third piece is build as much as you can without fundraising. And I think this was particularly relevant for us because AI is a space that does require capital to build models. And so I think we spend a little bit more time thinking about the idea and saying, hey, we just need funding to build this. We just need funding to build this. And we could have just stood up an MVP, started selling, and been done with it. But on the flip side of this, a lesson that I also very much learned, and so is the antithesis of what I just said, is the moment that you launch a product to the public, the conversation with investors becomes more about the numbers than it does about the idea and the team. And so I would caution you to do as much customer discovery as possible before you launch to the public. Have a closed beta, have friends and family join it, find target customers that can try it for free, but do as much of that work beforehand so that when you launch, you have a bunch of people that talk about you, you have a bunch of people that you've already vetted that would be willing to pay. Um, but also make sure that like you've fundraised a little bit beforehand so that it doesn't just become this metrics conversation when you go into fundraising from there. That's all startup stuff. Um, in the last piece that I think any entrepreneur would tell you is everything's going to take longer than you expect. So however long you think it's going to take, multiply that by two, and then maybe sometimes you'll get lucky and it'll be shorter than that.
Let's explore for a moment the last one.
Yeah.
One more piece of advice. How do you get your first customers? So you said, it's important to do like a closed beta, blah blah blah. Okay,
Yeah.
let's say that I have a startup. I want to do just that. How do I find the first, I don't know, 10 customers, not 100, but the first 10 customers?
Yeah. So as I mentioned, none of the people on the team really had a network of marketers, and that's who we thought our ICP was. And they still are, but there's been some recent developments that have made me realize that people that are not marketers actually have even more value they could derive from the product. But if I were to say start a company today, how would I get my first customers? So there's a couple different ways. One is that you can create the landing page, create like we call this, I think it's a red door or like a false door. I think a painted door. Yeah, that's the term. And just make a landing page of what your business would be. Go get the domain, make a landing page of what the business would do, and then go post that landing page on a bunch of different websites where potential customers that you would want to target live. So Reddit is a good example of this. Indie Hacker, Hacker News, there's all sorts of platforms that you can do this on. So that at least helps you validate the idea. Make sure that there would be a market because you would have some inbound, and you can put a little link that says like, reach out to us. We're building our wait list right now. So that's a really good tactic to be like, hey, is there even demand for this thing? And you put it everywhere. There's also a website called BetaList. BetaList will allow you to post your product on their website that will give you some free marketing. There's another community called Startup Founder Daily on Twitter. He will also give you some free marketing. So there's a bunch of different ways to get free marketing just to validate the idea. Make sure you validate the idea. That would be one thing that I very much tell people to do. But okay, let's say you validated the idea. You've built your MVP, and now you're ready to go get your revenue generating customers. A couple different ways you can do this. If you're a consumer or a B to small B type player, what we did is we used deal platforms. So we used AppSumo. AppSumo was like our first several revenue generating customers other than the team itself paying for the product. So AppSumo was a really great way for us to just put the product out there, get a whole bunch of feedback, and get a couple hundred users that have paid for the product that are willing to give feedback. That community is really, really excited about new products, and they just want products that help them solve their problems. So they're going to help guide you on what you should build. Another platform similar to that would be Product Hunt. So Product Hunt for us has been a huge channel of acquisition. We were number one last year, but Product Hunt allows you to post your thing to the website, but you don't have to have the payment flows through them. AppSumo has the payment flows, and there's a return policy. So for some businesses like ours, there can be some misuse where users would sign up, use our product for 60 days, burn a bunch of our costs, and then refund. Product Hunt is more just, hey, we're free publicity. If people rank you and vote you up, then theoretically you get more exposure, you get more users coming to the platform. Those are two indirect, I would say, platforms for generating your first customers. The last piece, honestly, I think is just you got to churn and burn. So you identify who's my target customer. You go to LinkedIn and you create a nice little script and you reach out to people and you say, hey, could you try my product? Could you give me feedback? And maybe you give them some free usage. And then the hope is that after that conversation happens, and now you maybe get a 10% hit rate, unless it's like the best product ever, you get them to turn into a paying user, and you get them to be a brand advocate because they've been a part of your journey since the very beginning. You know, everybody loves that story of I knew the band before they were big. Everybody in tech seems to love the story. I knew that app before it was that app. So the direct method in the early days, yeah, I would definitely recommend because it's just going to be a lot more personal and gets people a lot more bought in.
Love it. Love it. This part was full of really useful and actionable advices. I was wondering, Brennan, what do you think is the biggest challenge in 2023 for the market in general, for the whole
Yeah.
AI movement, and for you guys in particular?
Yeah. So I guess let me answer that question with a question real quick. What what seems to be the perception on behalf of the students that you work with in some of the businesses that you work with about AI?
Well, the probably the main, let's say, fear. I don't know if fear is the right word, but the main fear is that it's going to be something really, something similar to the whole, I don't know, blockchain slash crypto slash, Bitcoin slash NFT hype of the last couple of years.
Yeah.
So most of them are scared about this. I don't know, I'm gonna like pay for a tool, and they're gonna close after a couple of months, or I'm gonna invest my time and and skills and team on this particular technology slash tool, slash whatever, and then it's gonna be old in a couple of months. And so I think this is probably the biggest fear for small businesses, startups, freelancers.
Yeah. It's so it that's a fascinating answer to me because like the will this business go out of business has never really been a consideration for me when I'm buying software tools, but it's a very real possibility with so many players being in space, right? Because then, you know, VCs don't know who to fund. It
Mm.
becomes a matter of sales motion. So then the bigger players sometimes start to accrue sales from that perspective. But I think from a 2023 perspective, I think the big thing that the market's going to deal with, and ChatGPT did an amazing job of this towards the end of last year, was that getting people over the hurdle bit. Uh, I'm from Indiana. I go back and people have no idea that AI can do what my tool does. I show it to people and they think it's like voodoo magic. And that's not to say that people in Indiana aren't technologically savvy. I'm actually trying to build an AI incubator with our new school at my college. So plug that wherever. But it's one of those things where like there's a massive amount of people that still have no idea technology like this exists. And I think for those people to reach adoption and reach what I would call true mass adoption, it's going to have to really solve a problem. Like the AI needs to really solve a problem and have a lot of utility. And ChatGPT showed that if you have something that does enough things, there's utility. What we're showing right now, we've had our three biggest user acquisition weeks, is that if you solve a real problem, people are going to flood to you. There's a real need for people to have tools that just help them get their job done in a more efficient way. And I think 2023's message is going to be there's going to be a lot crazier models in the industry. Like Google's going to come back into the water. You're probably going to see some stuff from Apple. Amazon will definitely make a play. OpenAI is going to release a couple more models. You have some big AI players releasing their tools. So I think it's going to be a AI euphoria. But I think the real trend for 2023 is going to be making AI a friend and not a foe for anyone that's using it.
Love it. Love it. Um, Usually in the last part of this, of each episode in this podcast, we speak a little bit about books and also about tools. So let's start with books. Do
Okay.
you have any, great books recommendations that you want to share with us? I don't know, something great that you're reading right now, or that you, I don't know, in the last couple of years, whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'll start with the book that I've gifted the most because it's so basic. In often it's ironic that it's a book that I give, but it's called the Precious Present,
Hmm.
and I can't the author's elusive to me. It's maybe like 35 pages. It's the
Okay.
shortest book that you will ever read, but the concept behind it is just short and simple. But it's basically staying present, and
Hmm.
that presence and being present is the real gift of life. So that's a simple one, awesome book,
What's the name
especially
again?
the precious present.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then another book that I have thoroughly enjoyed as a first time founder has been Traction.
Mm.
So it's a great book, talks about different ways to think about getting your first customers, to think about different marketing channels and acquisition channels. One concept that's really stuck with me from that book is it's called the bullseye method, where effectively you have, here's all the different channels I could theoretically acquire customers from. And then you move into that second circle with the ones that have been most beneficial until you find the one that is most useful. And then you farm that out
Mm.
and you just focus on that sole bullseye. And then once that's been milked, you go back out to the second circle, try one of those again, go back in. And so that's like a really structured way for me to be able to think about it as it pertains to that. I also do a lot of fundraising. So there's a book called Venture Deals by Reid Hoffman. Great book on early stage fundraising, how to think about raising funds, some pitfalls that you're going to run into if you don't know the legal ins and outs in a very understandable way. So that would be another book I recommend. And then one that I wanted to bring back from what we talked earlier. If
Yeah.
you're curious about where this is all going, where's it all going? There's a book that was very clairvoyant called The Sovereign Individual.
Mm.
And it is an amazing book. I think it was written in the 80s. It predicted cryptocurrency. It predicted
In
the
the
death of
80s.
yes, in the 80s.
Wow.
It predicted cryptocurrency, electronic currencies. It predicted AI tools. It predicted a world that it even predicted the creator economy and like a world where people can just function as their own sovereign individual. And so there's so much discussion in that. That's just a fascinating book in very enlightening about where this might all be going in the future.
Nice, nice. I love it. I love it.
Gotta
Anyway, you'll
ask,
find all the links in the description, guys. So,
I gotta ask, what are you reading right now?
what I'm reading right now. So, I just started a book yesterday. I started a book that is quite amazing, actually. It's called How We Got Here, Six Great Innovation That Created the Modern World. I
Wow.
just freaking love it because it's all about, for example, the first chapter. So the first innovation is about glass. So it's not something that you will think
Oh,
about, but
yeah.
it's just amazing. So it starts with glass, and it showed the whole journey, through the whole years, and the last part is about, I don't know, a smartphone. So we have smartphones today, and smartphone we use a lot of glass. So thanks to glass, it's just, I love it. I love it. The second chapter is about cold and how ice changed everything and impacted a lot of industries. So yeah, I'm loving it. I love it.
Wow. That
It's
sounds like
it's kind of more kind of, let's say, a lot of storytelling. It's not a scientific book, but I mean, if you like innovation and you like great stories, I love it. Yeah, I love it.
yeah. I'm gonna have to pick that one up.
Yeah. And what about tools? I mean, apart from yours, of course.
Yeah,
do
yeah. I
you
was gonna say,
do you have
well,
any great, I don't know, marketing tools that you use in your day-to-day job that help you running your company, doing better marketing?
yeah, I think this wouldn't be a marketing tool that I think people would mention, but two tools that were very helpful to us early days. One is Pendo, which Pendo is a company that's focused on product-led growth and like evaluating usage of your platform, how customers move through your platform. We then eventually migrated to LogRocket. LogRocket allows you to view user sessions and see how they're interacting with your platform.
Hmm.
But what those two allowed us to do from a marketing perspective was identify what are people using the most. So we focused
Hmm.
our product development efforts on what people were using the most. But then two, we could focus our marketing efforts. If we saw that one feature was being used way more than anything else, which tended to be our blog writing capabilities, then that's what our marketing focused on. And we just focused on sending marketing ads and everything, creative write-ups, all about blog writing until like we saw diminishing returns there. So that's an instance where like product-led growth actually married with marketing-led growth.
Hmm.
And we were able to create content that would, interest more users.
Hmm. Hmm.
So those are two really great ones. Um, Orca was another one that I used for quite some time early
Say it
on.
again.
It's
What's the name
called
again?
Orca, Orca
Okay.
like the whale. We don't yet have distribution available on our platform, but they are. Orca is a distribution platform to where you could say queue up all your posts. So we create all this content for you, but then you have
Hmm.
to go and distribute it across a bunch of different platforms. Orca was a really great tool, fellow startup that we really liked that we could work on there. And then obviously, I think first promoter for us has been huge. So we do a lot of affiliate led sales, and that's been a big part of our growth journey. And first promoter is probably the best affiliate tool I've seen out there in terms of giving visibility to the affiliates of their leads, making it easy for whoever's running the program to manage it, allowing for custom branding right out of the box. And they've been super helpful for us migrating from Rewardful to First Promoter. So I would say those have been the three most tangible ones, other than like, your Slacks and your emails and
Yeah.
those types of things.
Nice, nice. I love it. I love it. And you'll find the links, books and tools as well in the description below. So, Brennan, before saying bye, where they can find you, read you, follow you?
Yeah. Yeah. So I have probably the most basic handles of any social media person. It's literally just my name, Brennan Woodruff. I think I think on Twitter right now I'm BrennanWoodruff.gpt, but it's just at Brennan Woodruff. LinkedIn is probably the platform I'm most active on, other than Twitter. We run a Facebook community. Many of our customers are actually Facebook friends with me now. It was amazing to see like them wishing me a happy birthday pouring in. That was, kind of a tear inspiring moment. And then I frequently post on Instagram, but that's more personal stuff. So I would say Twitter and LinkedIn is where you're going to find me the best. So shoot me a connection request. Would love to meet fellow listeners.
Nice, nice. Thank you so much for your time, Brendan. It was a
Yeah,
pleasure.
it's been great. Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the podcast. I hope you enjoyed it and you learned something new. Make sure to subscribe to us on YouTube and Spotify to stay updated on new episodes. With your support, I can continue to bring great content and great guests to this podcast. So hit the subscribe button now and I'll see you in the next episode.